John.
Yeah, hi
Back
John.
to the Zoom room. Nice to have you here again. Let's have a look then at today's text reading, which is section 7. Was it section 8? Let's just check. Section 7 of chapter 18. The title of that is I Need Do Nothing. Just going to share my screen. And then let's crack on with it, shall we? Okay. All right. All right. There we go. I need to do nothing. And sharing my screen. There we go. Okay. Can you see the screen?
Um, it's saying that you're going to do screen sharing. The words haven't come up yet.
Okay. Saying to me that I am screen sharing, so maybe I just need to go out. Any luck now or not?
Not yet. It says double click. Oh, okay.
Yeah. So let me just try again. Let's see if that works. Screen sharing. Okay. Can you see it now?
Yep, got it now.
Yeah. Sometimes doesn't work that well. Okay, so I need do nothing, which is a kind of level one statement. A lot of people have got quite confused about this. Well, if I need do nothing, then what am I supposed to do with my life?
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
it's all about interpretation. So let's get into it. Right. So given we've got an hour, do you want to just read the alternative? There's 8
Yeah,
paragraphs.
yeah.
Just crack on with the alternative. Not much to translate anyway.
Yeah. There is
No,
there's
just
what?
number one.
Okay.
What?
Oh yeah, okay. I still have too much faith in the body as a source of strength. What plans do I make that do not involve its comfort, protection, or enjoyment in some way? This makes the body an end and not a means in my interpretation. And this always means I still find sin attractive. No one who still accepts sin as their goal accepts at-one-ment for themselves. And so I have not met my one responsibility. At-one-ment is not welcomed by those who prefer pain and destruction.
Yeah. So thoughts on that?
Um, well, he's saying that I'm still heavily invested in the body, that we are heavily invested in the body. And as such, there's nothing that we do that doesn't involve service to the body, which means that we are putting the body as a priority, and this makes the body an end and not a means in my interpretation. And this
Yeah.
always means I still find sin attractive. It's it's saying that we put the body, we continue to put the body first, which means we still find sin attractive.
Yeah.
That is, you mean, and he's using the word sin here in the sense of separation, I think.
Well, sin is a consequence of separation, but it's down the ladder a bit. So let's have a look at where it sits. No, descent into hell. So you see it sits below the level of the individualization. So if you believe you're a body, you must believe you're an individual self. Is it working? Maybe I need to close some tabs. Might be an idea because it didn't seem to be happening. So let's close that. There's that. Oops. Okay, now it's just closed itself entirely. Maybe I can close some other apps here. What else is going on? I've just got a bit going on my PC. Let's close that. Let's close that. Close WhatsApp. All right, so we should have a bit more PC resources here. So let's open it again. So if you remember the descent into hell, this is sin underpins the individualization, which is the whole problem. So yeah, it's part of separation, but it's what entrenches the separation as real in our mind. So there's the diagram, which we looked at many times. So guilt and sin exist because we think in order to be an individual self, we've destroyed God, love, oneness, being, pure formless awareness, whatever you want to call it. In order to exist as an individual, we've destroyed perfect oneness. And so we feel that we've done this terrible thing, which is sin, and now we feel guilty for it. So what he's saying is if you value the body, which is even further down the ladder, so once the projection happens, it all gets splurged out there in this explosion of mind energy called the Big Bang. And now we get these fragmented forms, bodies that seem to exist as separate entities in this alternative reality we've created, we've made up. Now, when we hold to the body and what we do is for its pleasure and for its safety, what we're really saying is that we're a separate self, and therefore sin and guilt must be real. So that's where the this comes from. I still find sin attractive if I make the body an end, right? So it's comfort, it's protection, it's enjoyment in some way. You're making the body an end and not a means.
Can we just go back to the diagram? Do you know?
Yeah, sure.
I'm just wondering what the word sin means. Guilt is the sin, the act of destroying God, the wrongness of doing God, of destroying
Yeah.
God.
Well, I use an acronym, separate identity named, which is actually the source of all sin. As soon as you name an identity, you think you've destroyed perfect oneness. But sin is the idea that we've done something wrong and that it's permanent and that it's punishable. And so therefore we need to fear punishment. That's all. And that's why I don't actually translate sin in the alternative language, because it needs quite a bit of explanation. It's the idea of error made permanent, real, and punishable. That's quite a long put in for one word. That's what sin is. So the error of separation has now been made real in our minds. It's been made permanent in our minds, and it is now punishable by this fearful, wrathful, vengeful God we've invented from our conception of sin. So that's the false God which we see very prevalently in the Old Testament. Fire and brimstone, and he's going to punish his sinful children for their terrible sins, and so on and so on. And that's all part of this conception of sin, which derives from the individual self, which derives from the idea that we're separate from pure formless awareness of perfect love. So as anything that we believe in the red boxes perpetuates sin. Because if we believe we're a body, and the body is important and valuable in itself, and the body is an end and not a means to awakening, then we're believing that we must be a separate self, and therefore that guilt and sin are real. So it's one package deal. If you believe any part of the ego system, so anything going on in the red boxes and the red arrows, believe any parts of that, then you must believe that you're an individual self and that you're guilty for this terrible sin of destroying God, being perfect oneness, just to exist. This is what Jesus is trying to emphasize. Just because the ego seems to exist, it is sinful and is guilty by definition at the very core of its existence, which means that there is no redemption for the ego. There's no hope that it's ever going to be a functional thought system, because guilt and sin always go with it. Which is why he's saying, look, you got to let go of this entirely to be free of this. There's no making the ego better and somehow trying to make guilt and sin work. That's not the approach he's teaching us at all. He's saying just recognize the unreality of it, and that's freedom from it. Then all of this, if separation's not real, then everything here disappears. And the red boxes, the red arrows, it all just vanishes from the mind. And that's the Holy Spirit's job, is to remind us of that and take us back to this original state of pure formless awareness of perfect love, which is still there, but it's now covered over by all this rubbish we've made up. Okay. So is that helpful? Is that clear?
Yes, yeah. That's very helpful. Yeah.
It's always useful going back to first principles and back to those diagrams, because it shows you, the genesis of the whole system. And then you go, okay, so I can see now very clearly from the diagram that if I believe I'm a body, a victim of a cruel world, and I'm trapped in this body, subject to the laws of limitation, lack, aloneness, suffering, and inevitably death, then I must also believe up the line that I'm sinful and I'm guilty, because I must believe that I'm individual self. Only an individual self can exist in a body. Right? Perfect oneness, pure formless awareness has no need for a body, which is where he's leading to. I need do nothing is the awareness that I'm already whole, complete, and perfect in my true awareness, and actually I don't need to do anything else. What's going on here is all illusory. So all the doing of the body doesn't actually mean anything, because the body is not real in itself. But let's see what he says on the rest of it. Okay, I want to read number 2 in the alternative.
There is one thing that I have never done. I have not totally forgotten the body. It has perhaps faded at times from my sight, but it has not yet completely disappeared. I am not asked to let this happen for more than a moment. Yet it is in this moment that the correction of at-one-ment happens. Afterwards, I will perceive the body again, but never in quite the same way again. And every moment that I spend without awareness of my body gives me a different view of it when I return to its awareness. So is pointing out here that we've never accepted that we are more than a body, and that we are not a body.
Yeah.
We've never let go of that idea. We've been close to it, perhaps at times.
Yeah.
But it's never completely disappeared. And when we have been close to it, in those moments when we return to the body, as we always do in this illusion, then we are slightly changed.
Yeah. Yeah. Correction of the one happens in an instant. It's talking about, some kind of outer body transcendent experience, which I think we've all had to an extent. Moments where we're just not really aware of the body. It feels very liberating, isn't it? So every moment I spend without awareness of my body gives me a different view of it when I return to this awareness. So, for instance, take an outer body experience or a near-death experience, something like that, where someone has had an experience of being out of the body, of being free of the body. There's some people who die, um, they'll float above their body and they go, well, I can kind of see my body there. Um, you know, clearly I can't be a body then. The idea that our consciousness is in our brains becomes ridiculous then. Because if our consciousness was in our brain, out of body experience or an NDE would be impossible. And yet these are very, very common experiences that people have reported over hundreds, maybe even thousands of years that this happens. So, either they're all lying, delusional, or the theory is wrong. Those are really the alternatives. And that's what this is really saying. That theory of our consciousness is in our brain is completely wrong. We're not a body. We're not a brain. We're not defined by the body. The body is a delusion of the egoic mind. And it's put its mind into the body to convince itself that it is actually a separate self. What better way to do that, right? You're going to convince yourself that you're separate. You would put yourself in a separate body, and then you'd see yourself as separate and separate from all the other bodies around you. And that's exactly what the ego's done, to convince us that we are in fact separate and oneness is gone. Oneness is nowhere. Okay. So any other thoughts on that? Can we go on to number three?
No, that's clear.
Yeah.
Number 3, at no single moment does the body exist at all. It is always remembered or anticipated, but never experienced right now. Only its past and future make it seem real. Time controls it entirely. The sin is never wholly in the present. In the now, I would experience the attraction of guilt as pain and nothing else, and would avoid it. It has no attraction now. Its whole attraction is imaginary, and therefore must be thought of in the past or future. So he's saying here that we never actually experience a single moment in the present because we are always in the past or the future. And interestingly, he's saying that sin is never in the wholly present, wholly in the present. So if we are wholly present, there is no sense of sin.
Yeah, because it's a pure awareness. Right here, right now, I'm in pure awareness. What's there to be sinful for? Why am I feeling sinful? Why do I feel like there's anything wrong?
Yeah.
If I'm just in pure awareness, there's nothing wrong in that state. So in the present, you're free from it. In the past and the future, there's always sin. Past is typically related to sin because you think, well, I've done stuff wrong in the past, so have other people, and now I hold it against them. So now you have guilt and sin going on in your mind by definition of the past. And the future is related to sin because so often the future, now we fear the punishment that's going to come to us in the future because of our past sin. And that's the way the ego sets it up, so that we cover over the present moment and we're not aware of it. And so sin and guilt is and fear are all about time. You can't actually perceive sin in the purely present moment because it goes along with time. In pure formless awareness, right now, there's no sin. What's there to be sinful for? Can you sin in the present? No. You can only sin in your mind in the past because of what you think you've done. Even if you're doing something not very nice in the moment, there's no sin. It's only in retrospect that you go, oh, I shouldn't have done that. Now I feel guilty. And then the sin arises on reflection. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, it certainly makes sense that sin cannot exist in the moment, in the now.
Yeah. In any single instant, attraction of guilt would be experienced as pain and nothing else. He talks about this attraction of guilt because we are attracted to sin and guilt, but it comes in a form that we can't always recognize. So let's say we identify with the body, we value the body, we're seeking the body's safety and protection, its pleasure, its comfort. We're actually saying, yes, I find guilt and sin attractive. But we don't realize that because it's several levels down in the system. Most people have no idea. Oh, well, yes, I just want to, creature comforts. I want my body to be pampered. I want pleasure in my body. What's wrong with that? Well, the problem is you're emphasizing that you're a body, which means that you must be a separate self, which means guilt and sin must be part of it. And you do see, there's always a kind of an edge, a negative taint to anything the ego creates. So if you start seeking pleasure and addictions and all that kind of stuff, there's always a downside, isn't there? There's always a negative side to that, and that's the guilt and the sin coming through that you then see, and then it has effects, and then when you seek pleasure, typically what happens is that makes you ill eventually, because these just pleasure seeking is usually not very good for your body. And so it makes you ill, which is the punishment that the sin demands. And so sickness is the punishment that guilt and sin demand from you because of your apparent sin. Now, it doesn't seem to be that way if you look at these things in isolation. But if you connect the dots of the ego's thought system, it becomes very clear what's going on, which is exactly what he's doing, helping us to do in the Course. There's very few people in the world have connected the dots. We have systems to deal with illness, but they don't consider that sin is the real problem and that actually your individual identity is the real problem behind your physical sickness. They divorce it from that. And they go, okay, well, let's just treat the body and we'll treat the symptoms, forgetting that actually the cause is in the mind at a higher level. That's the whole problem of allopathic medicine. And any body orientation then must believe in guilt and sin. That's what he's saying, really. It's part of the whole system. You see that very clearly, and the diagram shows that very clearly. It's an interlocking system, and the one part of the system reinforces the other, which is why we have to let go of the entire system or not at all. If you hold to one part of the system, let's say you believe you're a body, then you have to believe in the rest of it, because it all goes together. So it's about undoing every egoic belief that makes up this thought system to finally free yourself from the thought system of separation and return your mind to pure formless awareness of perfect love. Okay. Should we go on to number 4 then?
Yeah. It is impossible to accept the wholly aware moment without reservation, unless I am willing just for a moment to perceive no past or future. I cannot prepare for it without placing it in the future. I will be released the moment I wholly desire it. Many have spent a lifetime in preparation for this moment, and have indeed achieved their moments of success. This course does not attempt to teach more than they learned in time. but it does aim at saving time. I may be attempting to follow a very long road to the goal I have accepted. It is extremely difficult for me to reach that one by fighting against sin. I can expend enormous effort in the attempt to make what I hate and despise pure and despise pure and innocent.
Yeah, that needs a bit of changing. Let's see. Attempt to make holy what is hated and despised. Okay. So, I can explain enormous attempt to make what I hate and despise pure and innocent. Yeah, okay, that does make sense. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, number 9.
Nor is a lifetime of contemplation and long periods of meditation aimed at detachment from the body necessary. All such attempts will ultimately succeed because of their purpose. Yet the means are tedious and very time-consuming, for all of them look to the future for release from a state of present unworthiness and inadequacy.
Yeah. So thoughts on that?
Well, it's just stressing again that we can't accept the present moment unless we let go of the idea of past and future. We can't prepare for being in the present. I cannot prepare for it without placing
Yeah.
it in the future.
Yeah. We release the moment I wholly desire it, which is an interesting statement. So whole desire would mean that you've let go of every other desire.
Yeah. And you are wholly, every cell of your body is wanting it.
Yeah. Well, it's just open to it. You know, the idea of wanting then brings in
Okay.
craving. So
Uh,
desire is maybe a problematic word in that context. The moment I wholly, how about accept it
yeah. Yeah.
better?
Yeah.
You release the moment I wholly accept it. I think that's better. You know, I wholly desire it sort of implies it brings in the craving, the desire.
Yeah.
I wholly desire it. I sort of understand what he's saying, but I think wholly accept kind of hits the nail on the head a bit better.
Yeah.
You agree? At
I do.
least the moment I wholly accept it. So, in other words, there's no reservation. I'm not hedging my bets. I'm not going, well, the ego still offers me something. The body still offers me something. It's a complete, okay, I'm done. You know, the ego system, usually because I've suffered so much, I'm done and I wholly accepted one month. I wholly accept that, you know, my only purpose here is forgiveness. And this message, this teaching. And then I'm released as soon as I wholly accept it. You know, the ego's dropped away. So many have spent a lifetime in preparation for this moment, haven't you indeed achieved their moments of success. It's talking about, you know, dedicated people on a spiritual path who have dedicated their lives to the spiritual path, and they've spent many, many years preparing for the a moment of awakening, enlightenment, satori, samadhi, etc. Um, but then he cautions us, and it's quite a pertinent passage. He's saying, so if you try and fight against sin, that's never going to work. You know, think of um, particularly in the church Middle Ages. You know, the guys used to flagellate themselves, literally. Yeah, I'm so mea culpa, mea maxima culpa. They'd like self-flagellate because they despising themselves for sin. And he's saying, obviously, that's not going to work. You can expend enormous effort and attempt to make what I hate and despise pure and innocent.
Yeah.
Um, so the body, you know, you're trying to purify the body, which is actually what you really hate and despise, and you try and make it pure and innocent. Well, this is never going to work. nor is a lifetime of contemplation and long periods of meditation aimed at detachment from the body necessary. So that's interesting, because some paths are like, no, you've got to put in the hours of meditation. I remember doing the Vipassana. They're like, no, minimum 2 hours a day. And then once a year, you've got to go on these long retreats and do 10-day retreat. And the assumption is that this is going to work, right? This is going to awaken you. Well, not according to Jesus. He's saying, well, you don't actually need to. Ultimately, these attempts will succeed because of their purpose, because the purpose is to find God. But then the means are very tedious and time consuming. I did sort of get that sense when I went on the Vipassana retreat and I spoke to the teacher. She was really into it. She'd been into Vipassana for like 25 years. I think she did about 6 hours a day. She was retired, 4 to 6 hours a day of meditation. So that's like, a quarter of your life spent meditating, pretty much. And then, she'd done various 20-day, 30-day, even a 60-day silent retreat.
Mm.
And I'm kind of going, okay, so you're doing all of this, and where's it actually getting you? Is it actually working? And then I kind of quizzed her on her understanding, and she just said, well, everything's anicca, everything is impermanent, which is the Buddhist teaching. But I said, but what about, the permanent reality we call God beyond that? Oh, well, she's kind of said, well, I know about that. I kind of know who I am, but she didn't sound very secure about it. It was all a bit kind of, oh, you kind of caught me out there. So I was like, well, I'm not sure this is a great role model. You've spent 25 years and who knows how many thousands, tens of thousands of hours meditating, and you still really don't get it. So maybe this isn't the way. Maybe it's a part of the way. Maybe it's a part of a practice that can show the way. But I didn't think that just saying, well, I'm just going to do hours and hours of Vipassana, that's going to awaken me. I sort of got the feeling like something's missing, which is what he's saying here very clearly. The means are tedious and time consuming. For all of them, look to the future for release from the state of present unworthiness and inadequacy. So the idea is, I'm not quite there yet. I'm somewhat inadequate, but if I keep working at it, I'll get there. But that's a trap, isn't it? So I'll keep trying and keep striving, and the more is better idea. The more I meditate, the better. Well, not necessarily. In fact, if you think of the Buddhist middle way, the Buddha did all that. He did 7 years of intense spiritual practice, trying to awaken. Nearly killed himself in the process because he'd virtually starved himself to death. And then finally, when he woke up and had that enlightenment experience under the Bo tree, he realized that it was all pointless, that wasn't going to work. That he actually just had to let go of all that, all this, the desiring, the craving, the striving. He realized that was the problem. You would never find enlightenment if you craved enlightenment, which is why we've changed the desire. And I wholly desire it, because it can be confusing. People go, but hang on, we're supposed to let go of desire and let go of craving. That's the Buddhist teaching. So why is Jesus saying wholly desire? Because he's using a word to indicate our total intention and acceptance of it. So just use another word, which is what we've done. So does this resonate? I think it's a very valuable
Yeah.
because he's giving us guidance on the way. He's saying, you don't need to do this. Long periods of meditation. He recommends we do meditation every day, but it's not long, is it? He's saying, look, do 15 minutes, 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Morning, do 20 minutes in the evening, and then top it up in between with just practicing the lesson, ideally every hour. Very few people do that, but if you can do a few times in the day, you're doing quite well. And he's saying, that meditation practice is probably enough to awaken you. So he doesn't say you have to spend hours. Probably because he realizes most people won't do it. He said you have to do at least 2 hours of meditation. But, the application of most people is going to be lacking. So most people won't do it. And then they might just go, well, I've got no chance then. I can't do 2 hours of meditation. So I'm just going to pack this whole course in. So he's been quite clever in the way he's designed it. He's saying, look, this is doable. It's achievable with about an hour a day of spiritual practice. You did say 15 minutes in the morning, 15 minutes in the evening, and then a few breaks in between. Might get you to, you know, as little as 45 minutes, an hour, something like that. You can actually make a lot of progress by practicing forgiveness in those times, by meditating on these ideas and using the ideas to help you let go of what you need to let go of. You'll make a lot of progress, more so than if you spend hours and hours and hours meditating, which is quite encouraging. Remember, this course was given for the modern, you know, the modern age, for someone who's living a modern lifestyle. And he knows that we don't have hours and hours of time generally, unless you retire. But you know, the average person is working, they're busy. To say 2 hours a day, even is, you know, it's a big time commitment. So he's trying to make it quite easy and doable, saying, look, just practice the lessons and do forgiveness, do proper radical forgiveness or letting go, and then, you know, you'll make more progress than if you just spend years meditating without anything else. And as I said, you know, my own experience, I saw that with the Vipassana, you know, approach. There's some value in it, but I think just doing that is quite limiting. And then the problem is the actual technique becomes a bit of a false idol, a ritual. And you go, well, the more I do this, the better. Is that necessarily the case? I even asked the question, I said, so is there any danger of the practice itself becoming an attachment? And she didn't like that question. She was like, oh, no, there's no danger of that. But I was like, you answered that a bit too hastily, in my opinion. You know, I think there's, of course, it can become, you know, another fetter, as the Buddhists call it, because now you get attached to the practice and you forget what the practice is for. So the practice itself becomes an end and not a means, as he's saying with the body. You see, and that's a big danger of a lot of these techniques. The practice becomes more important than the end that it's leading you to, which is putting the cart before the horse. And then, of course, you're going to get stuck in that. All right. So, yeah, interesting. Definitely worth discussing and bearing in mind. So already what he's saying is, look, just follow this course and follow the practice I've given you, because that's enough. That's sufficient for your awakening. Okay. So number 5.
My way will be different, not in purpose, but in means. A wholly aware relationship is a means of saving time. One moment spent in a state of true togetherness with my companion restores awareness of reality to both of us. I am prepared. Now I only need to remember that I need to do nothing. It would be far more profitable now to concentrate only on this than to consider what I should do. When peace comes at last to those who wrestle with temptation and fight against the giving in to sin, when true awareness comes at last into the mind given to contemplation, or when the goal of awakening is finally achieved by anyone, it always comes with just one happy realization. I need do nothing.
Yeah. So you want to unpack that? What's he saying there?
Yeah, it's saying that this way may be different, although its purpose is the same. In that, if we can actually have a holy, in a truly holy relationship, when we spend a moment with our brother in true togetherness, that also takes us to this moment of oneness, of reality, both to both of us. And at that moment, we do understand, we do completely recognize that there is nothing we need to do, because just being in that presence is everything.
Yeah, this was, we talked about the Buddha earlier. His experience of awakening was all of the striving for enlightenment. And he realized in that moment that I don't actually need to do that anymore. I don't need to do anything because it's right here, right now. That was his awakening under the bo tree. And that all the desiring and striving and craving was getting him nowhere. This wasn't going to work. He just realized it's already here now. I've been searching for it desperately for 7 years, but it's actually within me right now. It's kind of a joke, isn't it? That's why one of the Zen sayings is enlightenment is a joke. So you've been desperately seeking for this magic thing that's in the next technique, it's in the next meditation. He tried all the different meditation techniques, went to various teachers, knocking around in northern India, tried it all, and just wasn't getting anywhere. It must have been very frustrating. It's like, well, I'm putting in all this effort, and I'm just not getting it. Why am I not getting it? And he saw that a lot of these other practitioners and teachers weren't getting it either. So, then finally came to the realization, probably because of all that practice. It was a journey. You had to do all that. That okay, actually, everyone's missing the point here. You don't need to do anything. You just need to sit in the blissful being of what you are, which you call nirvana, and experience that. And there's the realization of the happy realization of who and what you really are. And you don't need to strive. So this is eventually we get to, you don't need a technique, you don't need a path. But the paradox of it is until you're ready for that moment, you do. I need to do nothing. If you say I need to do nothing and you're still very much in inertia or rajas, very rajastic in the ego, then you probably do need to do some practice to help your mind correct that, which is why he's given us a practice in the workbook lessons. So some people go, well, it's a contradiction. He's given us all this practice and all these lessons and encouraging us to do this on one hand. And then he's saying you need to do nothing on another. But it's a process. It's a journey to get there. You do stuff until you realize that you don't need to do stuff. Right? That's the paradox of it. I need to do nothing when I've realized that, as the Buddha did. But he wouldn't have had that realization if he hadn't worked very hard on spiritual practice and awakening for 7 years. So he obviously needed to do exactly what he did to wake up. So, and all of the paths have this paradox in them. Yes, you need to do nothing, but actually, it's going to give you practices to do. Well, there's a contradiction there. See that? But resolving the contradiction is the path. Okay, so I'll start doing stuff and knowing that eventually I will realize that I need to do nothing, and that moment will come when I'm ready, not before or after. But in the right now, what feels right is I need to meditate, or I need to practice the lessons, and I need to put some effort in because that's appropriate now. But at some point, it might not be. Once you've awakened, like the Buddha did or Yeshua, maybe they don't need to practice that much. They just sit in it. Well, even Jesus did go and he prayed. It said he would go away from all the crowds and his disciples and go pray on the mountain from time to time. So that's a practice. Right? He felt the need to go away and just reorient himself and do some practice. So even he at his advanced level did do something. I think this is referring to the holy instant, that moment where you just get it. And in that moment, you need to do nothing. So when remember that epiphany I had that I told you about after 9 days of the Vipassana meditation. In that moment, there was nothing I needed to do. That was very clear. It was, perfect, whole, and complete. Only when I came out of that and I had the kind of a download, and it was like, okay, I'm going back then into the world of doing, and I had a course to run, which was the course you did. And so I went back into, doing stuff, and I did need to run that course. But in that moment, there was nothing I needed to do because there was no time, there was no body, and all those thoughts just disappeared. So I think this is what he's really referring to. It always comes with just one happy realization. I need to do nothing. So in that moment, what you do, let's go back to our diagram, is you touch eternity. You go into pure formless awareness of perfect love, and you rest there for a bit, and all of this fades away. So there's nothing to do if you're in heaven. If we look at it in this view, you're getting to level one. You go into level one, well, then there's no need for a true self and higher awareness and true perception and reinterpreting the world, because you just everything's perfect here. There's nothing you need to do. And that's really what he's referring. So this I need do nothing is a level one statement. But if you still have work to do to transition from level two to level one, then you're going to have to go back and you're going to have to keep practicing forgiveness or letting go to correct your perception. So it just depends on where you are in your process. At this level, you need do nothing. And at the highest level of awakening, these enlightened gurus and so on don't need to do any of that. They just sit in samadhi or nirvana pretty much all the time. And that's, the odd person does attain that state. But Jesus himself says, look, that's possible, but it's so unrealistic for most people. It's not even worth talking about. Let's talk about what you now have to do to prepare your mind to have this realization and go into these blissful states. So I hope that explains the paradox and helps you just kind of understand that on one level we do need to do something, but on another level one we don't need to do anything. But if you've still got stuff to let go of at level two, then you do need to do something. It's called forgiveness. And then the paradox kind of resolves. It's just which level you're operating at. Does that make sense, John? John? I think you're dropping off.
I am, yeah.
Does that make sense? Does that sort of go in?
Yep. I did drop off for a minute there.
Yeah. Okay. Well, hopefully it went into your subconscious. Wasn't wasted. All right. So moving on then to number 6. Here's the ultimate release.
Here is the ultimate release that everyone will one day find in their own way and in their own time. I do not need this time. Time has been saved for me because I and my companion are together. This is the special means this course is using to save me time. I am not making use of the course if I insist on using means which have served others well, neglecting what was made for me. I will save time for Yeshua by making only this one preparation and practicing doing nothing else. I need to do nothing is a statement of allegiance, a truly undivided loyalty. If I believe it for just one moment, I will accomplish more than through a century of contemplation or struggling against temptation.
Yeah. So he's kind of clarifying, saying, this is like a moment of satori, they call it, of awakening, where you just get it, like the Buddha did. Okay, I don't need to do anything. Everything's actually right here, right now, in the moment. It's perfect. I don't need to move anywhere. I don't need to go anywhere. I don't need to do another practice. Everything's just okay. And that moment of satori, of illumination, as he's saying, just one moment will accomplish more than a century of contemplation or struggling against temptation, because in that moment you just get it. It's like, okay, I see. If I think of mine, it's like, okay, I just kind of get it because I've had this experience of not needing to do anything. There was nothing to do in that state, very clearly. It just was perfect as it was. One moment of that liberates your mind from the entire game of time and space. You just realize that all this is actually illusory and doesn't really mean anything. And then obviously that's what the course has been teaching us for years. But to really understand that experientially is what he's talking about here. Okay.
Yeah.
So on to number 7 then, the penultimate paragraph.
To do anything involves the body. And if I recognize that I need do nothing, I will have withdrawn the body's value from my mind. Here is the quick and open door through which I can slip past centuries of effort and escape from time. This is the way in which sin loses all the traction right now. For here time is denied and past and future gone. Who needs to do nothing has no need for time. To do nothing is to rest and enter a state within me where the activity of the body ceases to demand my attention. The remembrance of perfect love comes into this state and is present there. It will remain when I forget, and the body's activities return to occupy my conscious mind.
Yeah. So what's he saying there?
Well, he's saying that we can once we let go of time, we slip past centuries of wasting time, of being here in the illusion, which is where we are bound. Because in the holy instant, time is denied, past and future are gone. And to enter that holy instant, we just need to stop doing anything.
Yeah. And when I had that experience, it was exactly what he's describing. There was no time. There was no need to do anything. There was no body. There was no time. There was no awareness of the world. So what is there to do then? That all just disappeared for a short time, maybe only a few minutes. I don't know how long it was, but not very long. But now remember that forever because it was a glimpse of exactly what he's talking about here. Remembrance of perfect love comes into the state and is present there, but it will remain when I forget and the body's activities return to occupy my conscious mind. So yeah, I definitely there was a much after that experience, there was a much greater like, yeah, I get this now on a deeper level. And so because I've had this experience of perfect love, perfect loving awareness, the remembrance of it is stronger. And yes, you return to the world and the body and body's activities and doing, because that's kind of what you have to do in this world. Very difficult to just stop all that. But you keep this in mind, and it's always there in the back of your mind. But remember, none of this is really true. So none of it's that important. None of it's that real, and you don't get caught up in the drama of it, which is what forgiveness does for you. So I just rest and enter a state within me where the activity of the body ceases to demand my attention. Yeah, exactly. The body, in fact, disappeared in that moment. Like there was no body awareness whatsoever in that moment. Even though I was still, I wasn't sleeping, but there was no body awareness, and there was no thought of having to do anything or go to the time. Okay, I've got to, the next session is about to start. There was none of that. It just all disappeared, and of course, it was very liberating. It was wonderful. It was just pure awareness, which is where I came up with the name, pure formless awareness of perfect love from that experience. Okay, so number 8.
Yet there will always be this state of rest to which I can return. And I will be more aware of this quiet center of the storm than of all its raging activity. This quiet center in which I do nothing will remain with me, giving me rest in the midst of every busy doing on which I am sent. For from this center I will be directed how to use the body innocently. It is this center from which the body is absent that will keep it innocent in my awareness of it. So it's saying here that this is the The holy instant is the place in which we can, the place of full rest, which we can always return to.
Yeah. Quiet center. So having touched it once, idea is you can now return to the state more easily because you've gone there once. It remains a haven in the storm of the world. You know, all the raging activity of the storm. Nice analogy. You know, the ego does its thing, but you can always return to this quiet center, which is really the whole point of any spiritual practice, right? Any spiritual practice is just designed to return you to the quiet center, where you realize in that state, I don't need to do anything. The practice is maybe needed to get me there. You understand? That's the paradox because my mind is busy and I've got to do a meditation practice or some kind of letting go or breathing to help me get back to the quiet center. But when I'm in the quiet center, there's nothing I need to do. Everything's perfect there. It's very peaceful. And that gives us, when we return to the quiet center, where we need do nothing, we rest. There's nothing we need to do there. It's a very restful state. There's no stress there. There's no stressing, straining, striving. It's just perfect peace and rest. And then he says, for Formless center, I'll be directed how to use the body innocently. It is this center from which the body is absent that will keep it innocent in my awareness of it. So this quiet center where the body isn't is then still with you, and even though the body continues in your awareness, the body remains innocent of sin and guilt and fear and attack and all those other things that the ego is trying to project onto it. Which ties up with the previous section about the going beyond the body. So if you read the previous section, you see how it builds on this in this section. Okay. So happy with that?
Yep, that's good.
All right, you want to read the summary and then the key message, and then we'll can call it there if you want.
I recognize that I still place too much faith in the body for strength, comfort, protection, and pleasure, which means I find sin attractive and haven't fully accepted at one moment. I have never completely forgotten the body, though it may fade from my awareness at times. The body does not exist in the present, but is only remembered or anticipated. True release comes when I desire to be released fully without anticipating this in the future. Many have spent lifetimes preparing for this. This course aims to save me time. My way to one-ment is different in means, but not in purpose. A wholly aware relationship with my companion can save us both time. I am prepared, and I only need to remember that I need to do nothing. This realization is key to experiencing the deep peace that comes from true awareness. If I recognize that I need to do nothing, my mind lets go of the body's value and escapes from time. Sin loses its attraction in this state, where past and future are denied, and I rest in the state where the body's activities stop demanding my attention. The remembrance of perfect love will come to me and remain even when I return to the body's activities. There will always be a state of rest to which I can return. Quiet center amidst the storm. This center remains with me, providing rest during busy times and directing me on how to use the body innocently. This state keeps the body out of my awareness, allowing me to focus on my center of awareness that transcends my body, which is all that truly matters.
In a quiet center. of my awareness. It's a very nice phrase, that the quiet center,
Yeah.
which is really all that we're trying to ever connect with. All spiritual practice is just to go back to the quiet center and let go of all the noise. And that's meditation, breath work, letting go, various other techniques, modalities, and there's hundreds of them. So what are they designed to do? If they have any worth, they're designed to bring you back into that quiet center and restore your mind and your awareness to that state. So that's really what he's talking about. And in that state, you don't need to do anything. Everything's fine. But you might need to meditate and do a practice to get into that state where you realize you need to do nothing. That's the paradox of it.
Yeah.
Just depends on which level. But the paradox is resolved when you understand the idea of levels. Understand that. So if you're at this level in your perception in your mind, then you need to do stuff. You need to forgive, you need to let go, so that you can go higher and you can touch this level one where you realize, well, I don't need to do anything. I need to do nothing in level one. But in level two, there's apparently quite a lot I've got to do because I've got to let go of all this rubbish that I've invented in my mind, all my attachment, desires and grievances and fears and expectations and doubts and worries and sin and guilt and so on that consumes me. My practice is going to be to let go of that because I'll never get to the quiet center if I don't let go of all that stuff. So at this level, you do need to do something until you realize that I don't need to do anything, which would be then a level one realization. You've transcended that. Then what a lot of people might do is they'll have that experience, then they'll go back down, and they often struggle. I think of your friend Nigel, probably had that. He went into this and it's lovely, but then he actually had to go back down and had to do some work and say, well, I've got to really look at my ego and do the necessary work to let it go. And that's where he floundered. He didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
And his whole life trying to get back to this, but not knowing how. And eventually just got very depressed because he couldn't find his way back. And it's like a elusive, blissful state that he attained for a few weeks and then it just disappeared and eluded him. Because what he needed to do was get into a disciplined practice like the Course, where he was systematically, progressively changing his perception through forgiveness and letting go. And then in time, he might have got back there. But he needed to do the work to let go of all these blocks to the awareness of love's presence. If he'd spent his life doing that, then that would have been a very different life for him, and would probably have got back to this state at some point. But now maybe more being able to sustain it more because he would have done the spiritual work to let go of the blocks. Whereas before it was like a gift; it got given to him, but he hadn't actually let go of a lot of ego issues that were still there in his mind. So that's a good case study. You can see the difference.
Yeah, it is.
The different levels that people operate at. And once you understand those levels, the teaching makes sense. All right. And just the key message.
Letting go of my body's demands and resting fully in the now will teach me that I am already whole and complete. This quiet inner stillness keeps me centered, calm, and in flow, allowing me to face life's inevitable challenges without losing the awareness of my true self in the process.
Yeah. Quite nice. Just to summarize. So, okay. So if I can have a moment of this, so I practice and I practice until a moment like this comes. I think of my experience. I'd done 15 years of, probably more, 20 years, but 15 years of the Course of quite intense spiritual practice. And then I just done 9 days of very intensive spiritual practice, meditating like 12 hours a day, which was prepared me for this realization. So, but when I had the realization, none of what I'd had to do to prepare myself was necessary anymore. the paradox is, well, if I hadn't done the preparation, would I have had the experience? Would I have been ready? Probably not. If I hadn't done 9 days of meditation, almost certainly not. I would have had the experience. So, yeah, that's the paradox we deal with in spirituality and spiritual awakening. I have to do stuff to let go of my ego to prepare myself to have a realization that I don't need to do anything. It's kind of funny. This is why I'm Zen saying they say enlightenment is a joke. Because when you realize that I don't need to do anything, you can kind of go, well, how stupid have I been? I've been doing all this stuff. And actually, none of it was needed, except that it was needed to prepare me for this realization. So it was all necessary until you realize it's unnecessary. Suffering is necessary until you realize it's unnecessary. When you realize it's unnecessary, well, you don't know. So in the meantime, keep practicing. That's what Jesus is saying. Keep preparing yourself, being ready for this moment. The best thing you can do is keep forgiving to open your mind to this kind of realization where you realize I need to do nothing. Because at this level, level 1, there's nothing to forgive. Right? There's no change of mind or perception, no forgiveness or correction is needed because you're in pure awareness. It's perfect. It's whole, it's complete just as it is. So it's level 1 versus level 2, or transitioning from level 2 to level 1. Most of the course is the transition from level 2 to level 1, and that's what he's describing. Forgiveness, letting go, they all belong somewhere in between. Even the true self is like a mezzanine level. It's an intermediate step to God, or pure formless awareness of perfect love. So you just need to be aware of which level we're talking at, and then the teaching makes sense for that level. But at level 1, the teaching of I need to keep doing stuff doesn't make any sense at all, because I'm already home. I'm already whole, complete, and perfect, and there's nothing I need to do. So ultimately, we want to get to, but in the meantime, maybe we have to do some stuff to get there. Do you get it? So that's the paradox we deal with.
Yeah, it's good.
But once you understand the concept of levels, then it's understandable. So a lot of teachers get confused by this, and they go, "No, you need to do nothing. It's all concepts. You're already whole, complete, and perfect." And that's true at level 1. But if someone is stuck in their ego and these concepts are their self-concept and they're very attached to them, then they need to do something to practice and get to level 1, right? And if you don't give them that process, then you are letting them down as a teacher, because they need a process to transition. It's like, trying to go from cross a chasm from one side to another, and there's no bridge. Well, they need a bridge to cross it, otherwise they can't cross it. And then they just get frustrated because they're stuck on this side and there's no process for them to get to the other side where they can finally have this awakening. I was discussing this the other day with Elaine yesterday. So a lot of people on her group apparently just getting really frustrated because there's no practice, there's no process. It's just like, well, the teachers in the group just saying, well, it's all concepts, just let go of the concept. And they go, but how do I do that? Like, what, like, I don't get it. How do I do that? I'm still caught up in the human experience. Well, how you do that is through radical forgiveness, as Yeshua teaches it. So there's a singular practice, one thing you've got to do to prepare yourself for the coming of grace, where you realize I don't need to do anything anymore. In that moment, that doesn't mean that that's for all time. Right? I've had that moment, but then I came out of it, and then I still have had to do a lot of stuff since that moment. That was 4 years ago. A lot of things have unfolded and happened. I've had to go back into doing, but now with the higher realization of this, that actually it's all okay, really. And actually, in truth, I'm okay, and I don't actually need to do anything at that level. That's a very comforting realization to have in the midst of your doing, which is kind of what he's pointing out here. The quiet center is in all of the doing, you realize, well, actually, none of it is really needed because I'm still rooted in this. And that's being in the world and not of the world. That's awakening one, living in the enlightened state in the world, which is what Jesus is training us to do through the course. Okay, so good section. Thanks for joining, John. All very good. I hope that was useful for you.
Yeah.
was just perfect, really, for the length of time we had. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, all good. Have a good evening, weekend, and
Yeah, you too, Jono. Yeah.
I'll see you next week,
Yeah,
Monday.
yeah. Monday, yeah.
Afternoon, yeah.
Good. Yeah, yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
brilliant stuff.
Thanks, Jono. Cheers.
Namaste. Bye. Okay, so that is a wrap for today. If you enjoyed the session, then why not subscribe? I go live once or twice a week, so you'll get this content notified by YouTube that it's there and available for you to watch either live or as a recorded session. And if you really enjoyed this, go to lifeball.com. You can see that in the background of the video, my virtual background, or below I've put the link in the comments box. Lifeball.com, and you can sign up there to my Telegram group, which will give you a daily inspirational quote related to the lesson for the day, which you'll also get from A Course in Miracles. Some comments on that inspirational quote in preparation for the lesson. You'll get a short meditation or breath break, as I call it, to practice the lesson throughout the day to help you to let go of whatever is arising. I also send out some movies, book recommendations, free ebooks. There's a lot of resources. It's a 1-year program, and I'm offering it a cut down version of it free through lifepool.com. You will need Telegram on your mobile phone or device. So just download Telegram and install it if you don't already use it. It's a messaging app similar to WhatsApp, but it's better, which is why I use it. And once you've signed up and you're on Telegram, I'll be notified of that and I'll add you to the group. Very simple. So check it out, lifebuild.com. Put in your mobile number that you use for Telegram, and away you go. I'll add you to the next stage of the group, and you'll receive all this mind training material free of charge in the early hours of every morning. That's GMT time. So yeah, go do that. Subscribe to the channel, and I hope to connect with you on the inside of the group or in one of these sessions. I also, by the way, in the Telegram group, send details of the live sessions and a Zoom link to be able to join it. So you can join us in one of these sessions. Okay, look forward to connecting with you soon. Thanks for watching, listening, and namaste, which means the awakened self in me acknowledges and honors that same awakened self in you. Peace. Bye for now.